What I want to do today is drive out a conversation about the opportunities that are available in all of the buildings that you either run or support in terms of providing a service. Cool? Cool. Yeah. Okay. I appreciate the cool.
I like money.
I like money too. So we have targets. The LDCs have targets for our conservation programs. That's to keep us in check and keep us driving and pushing these programs out. Anyone know why we have conservation programs in general? Saves you money, yeah. So I hear government a lot, absolutely. Climate change, thank you. That's where we're all headed, right? One of the major pieces, which was the driver initially for conservation programs, and we can say this on all sort of utility levels, is that the cost to invest in infrastructure to generate electricity is very, very expensive. And so it's more economical to actually conserve and reduce the need for increased generation than to invest in generation, right? I'm more of a tree hugger, climate change, save the planet type person, but sometimes really does come down to money. So that's why I'm here talking to you about incentive programs. Okay, a little bit about Toronto Hydro. We're big. Let's move on. The province of Ontario has goals for conservation, right? So all these programs that I'm talking about feed into where we're headed with those targets and how we're performing on a provincial level. Provincial target is 7 terawatt hours. So kilowatt, mega, giga, terawatt. It's a huge target laid out for our framework. And this framework that we're under, just in case you hear this bounced around, is called the Conservation First Framework, referred to as CFF. I'm going to keep going through all these. Okay, so down to the building level very, very quickly. Here's how today is going to work. If you answer a question, you get some swag from Jacob. Jacob, put up your hand. Yeah. So, I don't know how many questions I have. I don't know how much swag I have. So when it runs out, it runs out. But if I ask a question and someone answers, you get some swag. So we're going to talk about savings that matter. How many people who run buildings or work for a PM or FM company have targets associated with what you need to reduce in your building by? Who wants to talk about what their targets might be and what kind of building it is? You don't have to stand up and be at the podium. I just want a little bit of example. Yes, please go ahead.
Office building, 5% reduction each year.
5% each year, year over year?
Yeah.
Those are great targets. Are the rest of yours similar? Anyone who has targets, higher or lower?
We have 4%.
You have 4%. 4 and 5 year over year is significant. It might seem really easy the first year, but you do that the 4th and 5th year into 20-25% savings, and you're bringing yourself quickly into the realm of buildings that are top for performers for conservation. All right, so we can reduce savings targets, as all of you know, down to metrics that really work for your building. So often when we look at energy, we're looking at energy per square foot. That's referred to as a BEPI, or energy intensity unit, a building energy performance index. It's all this sort of benchmarking stuff. Is everyone aware that the province has mandated reporting of energy consumption through benchmarking in future years? If you're not, you should look into that. It's being rolled out in Class A buildings first, and then will slowly trickle down through smaller buildings. Okay, but there are also different metrics that apply to different sectors, such as cost per hospital bed, or cost per unit or room occupied for hospitality. How many people are here from the office sector? Just one person in the back is from the office sector. Well, this is really relevant, actually. How many people here from the office sector? Condominium or apartments? Yeah, a lot of you. Great. I'll talk a lot about condos. Healthcare. Awesome. Industrial. Government buildings. Whole other breed. Did I miss any category? Sorry? I didn't catch that. Rec centers? Data centers, sorry. Yes, so I lump that in with commercial, but you're absolutely right. Data centers have really special needs. Yeah, so we can talk about, I can bring in some examples from that. Are there any other metrics that you use to define energy in your building or your targets, other than some of the examples I've talked about or that are up on the screen? No? Okay. Totally fair. There are a number of ways we can recruit those savings, obviously, and I'm going to walk through the programs that are there to help you. So what I'd love for you to do is think about how what I'm saying is going to be incorporated into your business. That's obviously what you're here for, right? But bounce those questions off of me as they come to you in this session. So has anyone felt pain with the incentive programs in the past? Yeah? Hand went up right here. This lady, do you mind telling me what made it painful? And candid, you're allowed to be honest.
The portal doesn't work.
The portal doesn't work.
I do HVAC incentives, so it's a mess.
So that, yeah. Thank you. What's your name? Jan. So Jan has given you the soup to nuts explanation of why there's pain in the program. I fully appreciate it because it's an excellent backdrop to what I'm going to talk about in terms of where the programs are going. So I just want to give you history because I think it's important you know how much effort is being put into making the programs easier for you and drilling them down to a level where they can easily be incorporated into your business practice. It's not going to be perfect, but what we are doing is looking at the programs. We took the 2011 to 2015 section of programs and said some serious pain out there in the marketplace, and we've put through refinements. So have any of you lived through the retrofit refinements, the updating of the worksheets? There was just an update over this past weekend. If you have, we're getting better at that. It might not appear that we're getting better at it, but we are. The portal. So I will talk about the portal in a second, but what we were trying to do as a working group, we have working groups that are collections of people from LDCs working with the ISO who owns the programs to say, we got to alleviate some of the pain points and make this easier. We're never going to really be able to remove that retroactivity piece that Jan was talking about that I will reference in a second, but there are some things we can shift. So that's what you can take away from this sort of 5 minutes we've spent talking about. If you're feeling pain and you want to give that feedback to us, we actually really welcome it. Yeah, we get complaints all day long about how slow the portal is. But when there are serious things that you think we can change in terms of booster pumps is creating a prescriptive worksheet. Excellent example. So booster pump retrofits have become very popular in the last 2 to 3 years in Toronto. It has blown the multi-res market out of the water. So maybe we can move towards a prescriptive worksheet that would help you out for retrofit. Okay, great examples. If I've confused the hell out of you at this point, I will get back to what exactly I just said in the last 5 minutes when I talk about retrofit. I'm going to go through each program one by one. So we imagine, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, that customers go through a journey anywhere on this spectrum, starting from the ground up through to really sophisticated measures. So here's what I'm assuming happens on a site. Let's say you have an acquisition and you take a building into your portfolio. You go on site, you see that there's T12s, that there's no VFDs on the fans, that the building's absolutely in deplorable shape energy and equipment-wise. You have a bunch of equipment at the end of its life cycle. I would assume you jump into the most dire need at that moment, that you start immediately firefighting. Is that fair? Regardless of what kind of building it is. And then as you move through a few equipment change-outs, because you're just fighting fires in terms of life cycle or tenant or occupant need at that point, then you might get to the point of being a little bit more proactive. And then maybe you engage a consultant and you say, actually, where can I take that proactivity and truly start to be efficient? And then from there, you learn more about how your building's operating via data. And you might get to the point where the investments you're making for efficiency aren't in equipment, but they're in data and operational changes. Is that a fair assumption that that's sort of how the journey goes in buildings? Yeah? So when we look at programs, we need to design something for every step of the way. So that touch point of equipment is retrofit. And Jan was talking about the retrofit program, right? So that's bad equipment out, new equipment in. But as we progress through that spectrum, you're quickly looking at what data can do for us and how we are operating buildings. So I'm going to walk you through the programs all the way up to OpSaver and a program called the Energy Performance Program that the ISO has launched a while ago but is really hitting the streets with right now, and talk about wherever you fit in that spectrum, there are opportunities. Does everyone feel like they have a spot in that journey at the moment? Anyone feel like I haven't captured where you are in your facility? Okay, fair. So there are some slides I'm not going to talk about simply because they're a bit redundant or we're moving on. We've already talked about it. So first program, audit funding. Anyone participated? Jan, you get a rain jacket or a pen, by the way. Just come up and talk to us after. Cool? Yeah? Audit funding, I saw a few hands. Basically, I'm not going to run through all the details of the money that's available, but it is money that's on the table to help you to identify what can be done in your building. So for those of you that haven't participated in programs before, this is a great place to start. And we don't want these audits to sit on a shelf. We don't want this to be an investment in the binder that you put it in. Okay, we want these to be documents that actually give you a bit of a roadmap of where to go next. And so they come with some technical requirements around who does the audit and what kind of quality of data is pulled out of that audit. And if you want to break it down, hey, Ali from the ISO is here. I'll point him out in a second. If you want to drill down to opportunities on a building systems level, because you've kind of been there, done the lighting thing, maybe you're looking at booster pumps. There's something called a building systems audit that can take a specific system and do a micro audit on that particular portion of the building. Any questions about that? Anything can really fit into a building systems audit. Sasha, who's in the front row, manages audit funding for Toronto Hydro. Yes?
Okay, I'm a real estate agent.
Yes.
One of my commercial clients, I tried to talk them into putting on a green roof. I tried to talk, you're a very conservative guy, I tried to talk him into doing a microfit a long time ago when you could do a microfit solar to generate electricity. Now you can't. You can only do it up to your actual expenses. So it doesn't really make sense economically as it did before. Before you could get 15% return on a 10,000 kilowatt system. So let's say I specified the roof because he's got 17,000 square feet of roof that he has to repair. Would that be a $5,000 audit?
It may be. I love when I say pretty much anything can fit in, and then someone brings an example, and I go, I don't know. So the roof is interesting. Anyone else interested in solar/PV for their buildings? No, I'm actually surprised by that because one of the questions we get most often is, can those fit into the CDM programs? And the answer, unfortunately, is no. Our programs don't incent solar, but the ISO is doing a study right now to see if that should be incorporated into the programs, right? Because solar is along the route of the more aggressive measures available in the market, but it comes with an in-depth understanding of the financial model, what you're putting on your building, how it can be maintained, etc. So it's a separate conversation. For a roof, I'd want to take it offline and talk about what's on that roof, because really we need to drill down to what's consuming energy in the building. That's what the audit is for, right? So if there's nothing consuming energy on the roof, we might be hard-pressed to do an audit. Like you walk up onto the roof and there's nothing there, or there's maybe a few rooftop units.
Well, green roof as opposed to more insulation on the roof.
Right.
Which gives you a better return.
Yeah, it's a good point because now we learn he's not just talking about a roof, he's talking about building envelope, which it does factor into how a building consumes or doesn't rather consume energy. So good example. If anyone else is interested in that, we can take the conversation offline and maybe you can give me your card after the presentation. Great. Okay, audit funding. Now we're on to retrofit. This is the plug-and-play Lego version of all the programs. Bad, inefficient equipment out, new equipment in. But we've blurred the lines on retrofit now because we're getting into all of these controls-based measures. How many people are investing in controls and automation in their buildings? Yeah, I should see everyone's hands going up because it's not just an on-off control anymore. There are systems that detect even faults like filters needing to be replaced, which affect how energy is consumed in your building. At the Toronto Hydro booth, we should have a sell sheet about fault detection, which is what I just mentioned. I'm not promoting any particular vendor. It's the technology that's really making a difference. Energy efficiency is shifting from my lighting's not so great to how is my building as a whole operating. And when I say shifting, that's a bit of a misnomer because we should have always been on this end of the spectrum looking at even operational needs. So if you're just jumping in, retrofit is the safe place. There are prescriptive incentives, which are the easy, I'm putting in X number of lamps, or there's custom applications where you get to do all your own work. Show your work. It's like in math questions in school, right? Show your work. I'm not going to give you multiple choice. So That's great technology. So it's a combo of power quality and generation. Have we had an audit under power quality yet? So what I would want to see, because there's another pool of money available for studies that sounds more applicable to where you are versus audits very much laid out what's consuming equipment at the moment and how could we reduce how much it's consuming across all utilities. This sounds like it might apply more to the process and systems studies, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then let's chat afterwards and see if we can find a landing spot for what you're doing. Any questions about retrofit and where your projects might fit in? I want to talk about the portal that Jan mentioned. So Retrofit's our only program that applies online at the moment. We are moving towards all applications applying online, which if you're experiencing, we call it ICON, the Save on Energy portal at the moment, you might shudder at the thought of all programs going that way, but here's where we are. It's a significant time and effort investment in looking at what that portal might be in the future and meeting all needs, ISO, LDCs, and most importantly, customers and applicant reps. So the portal's being improved to extend the life of it right now, and you'll see those improvements in the next couple of months. But what I would encourage you to do is if you're experiencing extreme pain in the meantime, the more information we get that we can pass on to the ISO to say, here are the exact errors that we're getting, the more information they have to work with to improve it, okay? So I know it's not like I'm not going to tell you tomorrow at noon it's going to be better. You're probably going to have more luck in the non-busy times, which right now is evenings and even weekends. I can only apologize for what that feels like right now. We feel the same pain, but it is getting better. And I recently stepped off of a working group, which is still active and moving forward, dedicated specifically to improving the portal. We hear you and we get it and we're working on it. Yeah? Okay, so that's only for retrofit. Jan's smiling at me because she's like, yeah, and then it's going to kick me out in 2 hours. I know, I feel your pain. I really do. All right, process and systems I just referenced when I was talking to Robert. So process and systems, we call it PSUP, the Process and Systems Upgrade Program. I can't believe I forgot that acronym in front of all of you, and it's being recorded, audio and video, great. PSUP is what we call it. This was originally designed for really sophisticated users, hospitals, industrial facilities, some government facilities where they have specific things like manufacturing processes, or hospitals where they have specific requirements in order to keep their patients safe and healing. The incentives available through PSUP are higher than what they are through Retrofit. So where Retrofit tops out for non-lighting at 10 cents a kilowatt hour, process and systems tops out at 20 cents a kilowatt hour. Now that's not on this slide. What PSUP comes with as well is capability building. This is probably one of the most valuable slides that I'm going to show today. So anyone work in a portfolio buildings or a building with an energy manager? ISO funded? Oh, so NAS is an energy manager. For the rest of you that raised your hand, are you LDC funded energy managers? Anyone? ISO. Yeah, so Tom in the back is ISO as well. Great. So you can recruit up to $80,000 a year, salary-based option, or up to $150,000 a year, performance-based option, to have an embedded energy manager. That's either through an LDC or LDC sharing that individual, or through the ISO for multi-site customers. What that all means is if you have significant energy that can be saved, but you don't have the internal resources to identify projects, prioritize them, make them happen, meet all the application requirements, we will actually pay a staff member for you. And you get to choose the person, go through your hiring process, as long as you have pre-approval from us first, and then you have that resource that would be dedicated specifically to energy management. Cool? Yeah? What surprises me about energy managers is that we often can't get people to slow down enough to even get that energy manager in. So if you are thinking, I'm so strapped I can't even manage another person, pause for a second and think about what that resource could be. We have more trouble selling energy managers in commercial than anywhere else, and I think that's because of the portfolio nature of the business. We have energy managers under portfolios as well. So Tom with CapRate is one of our energy managers dedicated to a portfolio through the ISO. So if you're curious about how this could work for you, talk to one of us. You can even talk to Ali from the IESO, and he can connect you with them for that opportunity. The studies that I talked about for Robert are preliminary engineering studies and detailed engineering studies funded up to $8,000 or $40,000 respectively. That $40,000 should, raise a flag for you. That's a lot of money. So where we see these studies going might be power quality for a PES. We can talk about how that would get through. And the preliminaries really, is this project viable? How much work do we need to do in order to figure out if it's viable? The DES is typically for things like CHP or really involved HVAC and controls measures in like hospitals or recreation facilities, for instance. So money is available to determine if a really complex project is viable. So PSUP, we've talked about the studies, the energy managers. Question then, how do you know when to go retrofit or PSUP? Well, you really have to make the decision that's best for you at the time. Typically, we say go for the greater incentive, but there are some measures that will say, yeah, it's more appropriate for PSUP and not for retrofit. One of the things to remember with PSUP is the measurement and verification requirements that come with it, and I'm not going to talk about M&V here today. I do not want everyone to go to sleep. Let's just say that if LDCs could identify the single greatest barrier to participation and the process of applications, it would be measurement and verification. Extremely important component of what we do and the incentives that we offer, and it is a juggernaut. It is hard for applicants and applicant reps to understand M&V. It's hard for them to find qualified professionals, and it's a beast to get through most of the time, but we are here to help you through that. So know that when you talk about PSUP M&V, it can be year over year. CHP, for instance, comes with a 10-year requirement for M&V versus retrofit, one M&V process. You prove your annual savings once and you're good. There's an assumption of how long those savings will persist. So if you're having trouble making the decision, the best thing to do is talk to your LDC. If you have buildings outside of Toronto, how many people are Toronto-based for the buildings that they look after? And everyone else, how many people outside of Toronto in the province? Yeah, so if you need a contact at the LDC that you're working with, let me know. I'm happy to connect you. Okay? We want to make these decisions for you to recruit maximum incentive, which means maximum savings for us. I want to give a shout out to Enwave for those that are in Toronto. We have Naz here, who is an energy manager. Enwave is one of the projects that can go either way, retrofit or PSUP, depending on where the incentive is greater. If you are in the downtown core and you haven't considered Enwave, please talk to Naz afterwards. Talk to me. I'm allowed to do this because they are the only ones offering this type of technology and this service for chilled water. Okay.
What kind of capacity do they have still?
Naz, what kind of capacity do you have? They're always increasing.
Lots of it we have now.
Yeah.
We're not cutting out of capacity.
Well, back about 10 years ago, they were topped until they found some more buildings. Help reduce their load, so that's why I'm curious.
Yeah, excellent question. And I'm not going to do a sales pitch for Enwave other than that when we've worked with them, they are extremely diligent. The engineering is sound, and the applications usually flow through really, really quickly because they have dedicated engineering teams. So Enwave we don't get a lot of applications, but they're really successful when they go through. Okay, any new construction people in the room? Yeah. Have you participated in HPNC? Yes. How was that?
Can't tell you about my personal experience, but we are using it.
You are using it, okay. HPNC is a program that has an extremely long sales and process cycle, as you can imagine, because something's being built. I don't talk a lot about HPNC at these sessions because there's usually only 2 or 3 hands, but HPNC is going through some significant change right now. As everyone knows, building code was recently updated, and so we are keeping up with that, and also want to keep up with really incenting greater efficient design. We were not doing a good enough job of that in our marketplace. But that comes with a little star because we've been promoting this program since 2011, so we are seeing the traction sort of building. We have a long way to go. So if you want to talk about how HPNC has look and felt in the past and some suggestions that you have, let me know. There should be a relaunched program coming soon, but that doesn't mean projects are stopping. Let us know if you have something on the go, and we can establish an intent to apply and recruit those incentives for you.
Do the building models need to be created by consultant or I'm an energy manager.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I would think that you would be hesitant to sign off on designs, first of all, as a PNG, and not that being your specialty. But there are incentives for a designer built into the program. So we're really incenting on two levels to make sure that the architect/designer comes together with the building owner-operator to ensure we get that efficiency. CHP is being built into not HPNC, but PSUP. There's all these acronyms. What I'm trying to say is CHP for new builds will soon be an option. We are working on that because we're realizing, why would you build a building and then put CHP in a year or 2 years later and look at the construction we have going on outside? So we want to incent efficient design from the get-go. Yeah. Existing building commissioning. So recommissioning, retro-commissioning. Anyone have experience with this as a program, as an effort, even outside of the programs? Yeah, I wish I could see more hands raised for this one, because data shows that even after 2 years, cooling plants go offline in terms of their operation and efficiency. So huge opportunity through existing building commissioning. And there are opportunities to identify potential savings, then drive deeper, then actually incent the savings, and then we incent the final reporting. So it's a bit of a process. It's really data heavy. But if you're building, sometimes we say retro commissioning because cooling plants are often not commissioned at all. And if they are commissioned, sometimes it's not done properly. So significant opportunity there. Yes?
Sorry to interrupt. What about ongoing monitoring of the chamber system?
I love that you asked that. Yes. So I'm going to talk about operational savings soon, which feeds into that. Under Retrofit, you can submit monitoring and targeting applications, which is what you're talking about. So we often find that when a building has been properly or retro commissioned, then you've got this smooth running plant, right? And hopefully when you've done that, you've built in some sort of monitoring and targeting that gives you a constant feedback in terms of how your chiller's operating. And we call that M&T. So you can do it without recommissioning or retro-commissioning. It's often a byproduct. But you can also submit an application to say, we're not measuring this right now. We want to invest in metering or data points in order to measure. Then we'll make changes to produce savings, and then we can incent you on the savings. So yes, that can be fit in under Retrofit or under PSUP. Now, it hasn't had much uptake under PSUP because of the ongoing M&V requirements, but that is more the nature of M&T. I love that you've brought me a natural segue, because I'm going to talk about OpSaver and EPP soon, which incorporate those potentials. Yes?
About the CHP with being switched from high performance building into the PSUP. Will that, when it's released, entail any building that hasn't got the mechanical equipment in? Like, it's already been spec'd out, building permits have already been issued. And you go in after the fact, as you say, why put something in that's going to be more efficient? Will they cover all the buildings that are under construction right now?
We don't have program rules in place right now. So CHP for existing buildings is staying under PSUP. We're just adding that new construction piece to it. And it will look different and have different rules potentially than the existing building stuff. So there will be buildings caught in the in-between. We haven't established that yet. Yeah, we're getting there. Yeah. I'm asking for a lot of patience today, and that's another area where I'm asking for it. So if you're interested in EBCX, Toronto has had the most uptake in commercial. Let me know. Happy to have a conversation with you afterwards. OpSaver. So everything I presented to date is provincial, offered across the province regardless of where you are. I'm going to talk about a couple local programs, and right after OpSaver's local to Toronto Hydro customers only, anything with an M postal code, and then I'm going to quickly talk about the Energy Performance Program, and I will juxtapose them for you very briefly. They are offerings that landed in the marketplace around the same time. The commonality is that they both incorporate operational savings. So every one of our incentive programs in the past has required a capital investment. So you have to pay for the rooftop unit, and the $10,000 you paid for that, the small one, to buy it and install it determines the 50% cap on your incentive. But there's nothing that's been offered to say, if I change my set points, if I change my scheduling, if I switch my office to daytime cleaning, where can I get an incentive? Well, you're not investing any money, so technically then you wouldn't get an incentive for that effort. OpSaver is looking to recruit those operational savings. So as I just mentioned, we're talking about everything from scheduling to set points on cooling plants to daytime cleaning. Anything that you can change operationally in your building that shows persistence of savings, that's the key. OpSaver requires year-over-year proving of savings. So what it looks like is this. You engage in the program. I'm going to talk about the capability building aspect of it in a minute. You would determine the changes you can make, and then after 1 year, we go back and we say, we're going to check in with you. After a year, we're going to do some M&V based on whole building analysis, and we'll see how much savings you've produced. We're going to pull out things like if a tenant moves out, you can't claim that as energy savings, right? But as long as it's don't evict all of your tenants to recruit the incentive. But as long as we have engaged energy efficiency efforts, then we will incent those savings. And the next year, we'll do the same check, and the next year. So year over year, you're eligible for 2.5 cents a kilowatt hour. If you engage for 4 years, that adds up to 10 cents. It's different than retrofit because you don't get that big check up front, but you do get that rolling pool of money that hopefully you're building the savings every year. If you don't know where to start, OpSaver is a great place to start because we build in money in the beginning to build an energy management plan, and that's part of the requirement of the program. So there's significant money, tens of thousands of dollars available to engage a consultant to help you look at your building, say, where are all of my opportunities? Where can we go with these operational savings, and then help you with the M&V later on. Nope, all of our excellent points. So for anyone who's been around since 2011, our programs used to be, the targets were demand-based, now they're consumption-based. So in retrofit, you'll still see that $800 a kilowatt for cooling measures, $400 for lighting measures, but you don't see that in OpSaver because it's about tweaking, right? It's not about the big bad retrofit projects that are going to bring down that peak demand. Now, here's the gray area. We can incorporate retrofit projects in for the sake of M&V, but this is really ideal if you've done a lot of retrofit measures. So we can incorporate retrofit. You wouldn't be able to double dip. You'd say, okay, I jumped into OpSaver and now I've identified that I have a rooftop unit that's going to go and it's at the end of its life cycle. I need to replace it. Can I just go through OpSaver? Sure you can, and we'll just need to build in an adjustment and note that in the M&V. But if you have something like a chiller retrofit, you're probably going to get more money because of the $800 per kilowatt, you're still going to get more money via retrofit. Yeah. Okay, so I want to talk about EPP next. It's a natural segue. So Ali is at the back. He can answer all of your questions at the end or as they bubble up. Ali owns EPP on behalf of the province. So, roughly a year-ish ago, the Ministry of Energy turned to the ISO and said, we've got some pain happening through the programs, and we think there's nothing that's offered at the moment that really addresses multi-site customers. So how many of you have locations in multiple LDCs? Great, okay. Obviously you feel the pain in terms of application 1, deal with LDC 1, application 2, deal with LDC 2. This was the type of situation and conversation that started EPP. Really, we needed a program that offered one touch point, a catch-all, one application that captures all savings in that building, and you can go through one touch point instead of all the various LDCs. Valid pain if you have to do that, right? Even with the head office model under retrofit. So what EPP does is catches everything. So once you opt into EPP, you don't participate in any other program. So you don't participate in retrofit, you don't participate in EBCX, you don't participate in Toronto Hydro's local OpSaver or PumpSaver that I'll talk about. You are one-stop shop, one incentive, once a year. So it reconciles the way that OpSaver does once a year on an annual basis, only it catches absolutely everything. So if let's just use Home Depot because I'm pretty sure Home Depot's not here. If I'm Home Depot and I have dozens of stores across the province, this is really attractive to me because I can deal with one person, one application per building, identify the potential, do whatever I want in terms of efficiency in that building, and then reconcile once a year per building. How does that sound? These two programs, OpSaver and EPP, landed in the marketplace at the same time, and they're being positioned sort of like one or the other. It's true, because if you opt into OpSaver, you don't go EPP and vice versa, but they're really different target audiences. OpSaver is mostly about you're managing one building, you've done a lot of the retrofit stuff, and you want to go for operational savings versus EPP, I have multiple locations. I'm doing lots of things in each building. I don't want to deal with all those various applications, and I want one touch point. So if that sounds interesting to you, please have a conversation with me or Ali. The LDCs are happy to have these conversations too. Yes?
Quick question, the $15,000 maximum, is that per building or is that for one building?
So $15,000 per portfolio, so up to $1,500 per building for modeling. Yeah, so it's a maximum of $15,000. Now, there are nuances to this, right? Like if you're a bank and you have branches and they don't meet the eligibility requirements, you can lump them together in terms of eligibility. So if you're already asking that kind of question and you're thinking about how this applies to your portfolio, let's take it offline and have a further conversation. Yeah, and so here's a bit of the nuanced conversation, which is if you're jumping into EPP, it's not just operational savings that you're looking at, right? Chances are you have lighting, VFDs, controls, rooftop units ready to go, those projects identified. And so while OpSaver is really heavy on the, really front-loaded in terms of the incentive, it's because it's geared mostly towards operational savings, and those require a bit more in-depth conversation to identify versus I'm going to change out T12 to LEDs. All right, so there are lots of eligibility conversations we can have. I'm giving you just enough to start, the thought process, and I love the sort of digesting, is this right for me, that's happening so far in the room. Last local program I'm going to talk about, OpSaver. If you're in Toronto, this is a local program as well, and you have a cooling loop without a VFD with a valve that's throttled back, so you're driving that pressure up and then reducing it down. This program is for you. This is a no-brainer. So this is one of the ones we call direct install. There is no cost to participate in this program. All you have to do is let us know you're interested. We do a bit of eligibility question asking, so awkward. We ask you some questions to figure out if you're eligible, and then we send someone on site to determine if we can actually make a go of this in your building, and then our recruited vendor will come in, do the work, and leave. No cost. So please, if you're interested in this, let me know. Hospitals, multi-unit residential, this is hugely successful in multi-res. It's not the booster pump that Jan was talking about. This is for cooling loops. Commercial buildings, hospitality, so any hotels. I would want to see all of your names on this list to get an audit done. All right, there's some money available for training for customers and for energy managers to get things like a CEM designation. How many CEMs, Certified Energy Managers, do we have in the room? Yeah, that's a beast of a test, but it's a really valuable experience in terms of taking that course. Sasha just took it last week. She's still shuddering from the 4-hour exam, but really, really important experience. CMVP as well, really valuable. So there's money available to start these conversations, get training in things like RetScreen, which is another M&V tool. I'm going to distribute this deck afterwards to anyone that brings me their card, because I don't get to know who's in the session unless you bring me your card, and then I'll send out a PDF version. It's a team effort. We are here to help. I forgot that I included this in here. So we are here to help, but I'm going to naturally segue into our vendors that are in the room. So we have relaunched our Applicant Rep Program at Toronto Hydro. Anyone participate in the last version where we paid you per kilowatt? Yeah? What we learned from that is that you don't care about the dollars per kilowatt. You actually care about being on our website. Who knew? So we've changed up our program. We have recently launched it, and what it requires is you to sign up for a training, come and let us talk at you for 4 hours about the Retrofit program in depth. Then you're going to write a test, and you have to get 90% on the test in order to be listed on our website. This is not your grandmother's applicant rep initiative. It is hard to make it through onto our website. You really have to know the program. Even if you're new, though, I would encourage you to take this, because the education of walking through that 4 hours with the gentleman that does our training, Greg Rushby, fabulous guy, knows the program inside out. Even if you don't do well on the test, you will walk away knowing the program so much better, and that will bring value to your business engagements with your customers all day long. I promise you, you won't regret it. If you do make it onto the website, you have a chance to earn badges. So we have 5 badges right now. Fast approvals, so that means your applications are coming in very accurate. Customer trusted, so it's a lot like Yelp. They're going to go on our website and rate you in terms of the quality and of work you brought to the project that you did with them. And we vet out the negative ones. Don't worry about people trolling on our website. We'll get rid of that. Experience. So if you do a lot of applications, you earn an experience badge. M&V expert. I can't tell you how much I'm waiting for someone to earn this badge. It is my single biggest pain point as someone who watches applications being reviewed and watches all my applications trickle through the system. If you're an M&V expert, you need to market the hell out of that. And accuracy. Okay, so here's our Toronto Hydro team in terms of sector leads. So I look after commercial. We have someone dedicated to government facilities, so municipal, academic, social and healthcare, industrial, and then multi-unit residential. We are all available to help. Gord in the center right under me looks after CHP specifically. Lots of attention happening for CHP. And please reach out to me via email if you have any questions, or we have our general CDM inbox where you can email in questions. Yeah, I don't include phone numbers anymore because no one wants to dial and no one wants to answer. So we will answer the phone if you call us.